question is, what's wrong with New England? They're what, 2-4 now? This is their longest losing streak since 2002. In my opinion, people are crucifying Cam Newton. And I think, me included, we got fixated on his performance against Seattle, which in hindsight we know is one of the worst defenses in the NFL, the worst in terms of the yardage they give up in the NFL. And now they've been facing better competition, and it's just been collapsing. I mean, I watched the game and I took a record of what happened. So Newton had an interception in the second quarter. He threw it into double coverage. Fred Warner intercepted it. It was a bad throw. But also, he was leading his receivers into hits. He led N'Keal Harry into this nasty, really nasty hit. Then he had a bad interception with under a minute left in the first half. He didn't read a safety. He thought the safety was going to pick up N'Keal Harry running to the middle of the field, but instead he followed his other receiver on a go. Cam Newton threw it. It got intercepted, right? Then in the second half, he threw another interception that was tipped. I don't really consider that his fault, but he got benched right after that. The problem that I see with New England is that they are stuck because they don't have any weapons. People want to blame Cam, but who is your backup? Who are you going to go to? Jarrett Stidham? Jarrett Stidham is not good. And people were hoping he would develop into something. If New England thought he was good, he'd be playing. They would have never tried to go get Cam Newton. He's not a good quarterback. He had an interception in the fourth quarter yesterday when they threw him in the game. Every single time Jarrett Stidham has been put in a position to play, he's thrown an interception. We've seen it. He gave Jamal Adams, I think, his first career interception or his second. It was one of those. But the problem with New England is that they're stuck because they don't have another option to go to, and also they have no weapons. Bill Belichick drafted 2 tight ends in the third round this past draft. Their names are Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi. Devin Asiasi has played 5 games. He's yet to be targeted. Dalton Keene has 1 reception for 8 yards. These are third-round picks. These are Mike McCagnon-level picks. These are third-round picks, and they're not playing up to the level that they're supposed to play. And this was the most stacked wide receiver draft class, and you didn't go out and draft a receiver. It's just everything is collapsing in New England right now.
Yeah, and the problem was with Tom Brady being as great as he was, he could make those guys that were brought in to fill the gaps look better than they were. And when you bring in a guy like Cam Newton, who is not 2015 Cam Newton, he's Cam Newton coming off, I believe he had shoulder surgery, correct? Coming off shoulder surgery and in a totally different place in his career. He's not at that level where he's going to elevate everyone around him, and that's what the Patriots are missing right now. They don't have they need, if they wanted to win with this roster, they would need one of those top 5 to 7 quarterbacks in the league that can make mistakes go away elsewhere. And Cam Newton is not that guy. They don't have that guy on their roster, and they're not going to find that guy. And it's a microcosm of the bigger issue of they're still trying to go for it, but I feel like it might be time to bite the bullet.
They can't anymore.
And go into the rebuild. And I know, I hate to sound like the too ultimate outcome guy, but there are realistically 7 teams that can compete for a championship this year, around there, and that's being generous. And the Patriots are not one of them, and they're not trending upwards. They're trending downwards.
I don't even think the Patriots make the playoffs this year.
No.
I don't think they make it.
At this point, the Dolphins have a better chance of making the playoffs than them.
Yeah, they do. But also, it's like when you look at the Patriots, we underestimated how great Tom Brady is, which is really hard to do, but people did it because Tom Brady doesn't make mistakes. He protects the ball. He doesn't throw dumb interceptions. Cam Newton throws dumb interceptions. A lot of quarterbacks throw dumb interceptions. Even quarterbacks as great as Russell Wilson, we seen it yesterday in overtime. He threw a bad interception. Of course, with guys like that, it happens very rarely. But when you're a quarterback that's not as good as a Wilson or a Brady, you do it much more often, and that hurts your team. Another thing that's hurting them is their defense is not this elite defense anymore. They have these names like Stephon Gilmore, J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones. They got these good corners, but realistically, I was watching a game yesterday, and they were getting gashed by the 49ers. And that's why I disagree with you with what you said about Jimmy, because Jimmy had 2 interceptions. One of them, it was like a whatever interception, just trying to get a touchdown at the end of that half, right? So I didn't really pay too much mind into that. But he wasn't even throwing the ball. The whole game I'm watching it, I'm just like, wow, I feel like all of these plays have been runs, have been jet sweeps, have been outside zone runs. They were just gashing the Patriots. Jeff Wilson had 131 yards rushing on like 19 carries. It's just the Patriots don't have the same defense that's elite that can really make up for the lack of offense that they had. And even last year, the defense kind of was overrated because we've seen they were the top defense, but against competition that was pretty bad.
Yeah, and the one excuse that we have to give them is they have been one of the teams hit hardest by the virus and the protocol and figuring that out. And it's been an even bigger, tougher adjustment for them than a lot of other teams around the league. Bringing Cam Newton in was going to be a difficult adjustment anyway. And on top of that, missing him for a couple of weeks and just in general, other places on the team being impacted, missing practices obviously has hurt them, but it's no excuse for where they're at right now. You know, we as Jet fans watched the Bills on Sunday play against the Jets, and I'm sorry, they looked flat. Like, the Bills are not the Chiefs. The Bills are not what the Steelers have been this season. The Bills are vulnerable, but the problem is that nobody in the division is going to challenge them. That should have been the Patriots, but now it's the Dolphins. Like, the Dolphins are the closest team in the AFC East right now to the Bills.
See, I would agree with you about they've been hit hardest with COVID because they definitely had, but that's what we know Bill Belichick for making players that we usually wouldn't talk about into guys that, wow, we all of a sudden know who they are. And this year he hasn't really done it. You know, and we can't keep exonerating Bill Belichick for what he does year to year when his drafts are bad. His draft this year was terrible. You brought in no offensive weapons to help your offense. And that's why Tom Brady was so frustrated, because I'm watching the game and I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated for Cam that he's getting all of the blame. When, yeah, Cam is not an elite quarterback. I don't even think he's a superstar quarterback. He's a good quarterback, but he doesn't deserve this level of criticism that people are throwing at him because this roster sucks.
Yeah, and he's owned up to it, too. He had this quote on Sunday. He said, "The first thing I said to myself coming home was, you keep playing games like that, bro, and it's going to be a permanent change." And he said, you don't need to tell me that for me to understand it. I get it loud and clear. So he knows that he's got to turn his play around.
As long as Jared Stidham is there, there's not going to be any permanent change. As long as he's the guy that they got to turn to, if things go bad, there's not going to be a permanent change. They're going to change right back to Cam if they go to Stidham.
The only problem is, are they going to get to a point in the season where they give up on trying to win and trying to develop for the future? That would be the only case I think that Stidham gets the job permanently, because they're trying to see what they have, you know, and if they fall to having no playoff shot, there's no reason to keep Cam out there.
I think
rather than putting Stidham out there and seeing what you got.
I think they finish 7 to 9 wins between that area. That's why I don't think they're going to try to tank the season. I think they're going to still compete, but they're going to win the most 9 games. Realistically, I'd say I'd bank my money on them winning 8 games.
Well, they still get the Jets twice, so that'll put them at 4. They have the Texans, which they're not playing well, but even that'll be probably an interesting game. Deshaun Watson always makes it interesting. Other than that, their schedule's pretty tough. They have the Bills next week, and then they have the Ravens, the Cardinals, in no order, just listing teams. The Ravens, the Cardinals, the Chargers, the Rams, the Bills again, and the Dolphins. That's tough.
And that's the teams they have left. So the Jets twice, and that's remaining schedule.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to find wins in that schedule.
Yeah, maybe 8 wins, 9 at most if they really get lucky on some games.
I mean, I guess when you look at it,
but they face the Bills, and I think that's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, and that's a game the Bills have to win.
Yeah, but it's really a question mark because the Bills haven't been playing so well either.